Hello everyone, this is chapter 13 from my novel, my contemporary romance novel, Under a Namibian Sky. Naomi hadn't bothered drying her hair. Instead, she'd scraped it back, arranging it in a long plait that fell across her bare shoulder. She felt comfortable and stylish in her one-sleeved pink dress. Evidently, Luca thought so too. His eyes locked onto hers, and she could see his pupils dilate. He got up as she was walking toward the table where Santina and Auntie Elsa had joined him. He held out her chair for her and took his place beside her. Naomi felt all eyes on her, but she knew it was for different reasons. She wished Luca's eyes didn't communicate his interest in her so boldly. Santina's raised brow was perhaps an indication that she was thinking of the question she'd asked Naomi at the hospital about anything happening between her and Luca. Auntie Elsa's warm, knowing smile was a sign of her consent to the couple. Naomi shifted in her chair. Thankfully, Kerry's appearance moved the focus away from Naomi. She could have kissed her friend for her timely arrival. There was no preamble from Kerry, who got straight to the point. "Does everyone just want to help themselves, or would you prefer to place an order with a waiter?" The dinner was a buffet affair, and always turned into quite a social event, as guests, queuing for the food of their choice, chatted and made new friends. It looked like fun, and Santina and Luca decided to join in the fray. While they were away, the 3 Desert Lodge women placed their orders with a waiter. Auntie Elsa would visit each table later, as was her habit, to determine her guests' level of satisfaction and to fix whatever problems might need solving. Auntie Elsa sat back in her chair and regarded Kerry. "So, have you arranged something with Santina and Luca about the dune buggies yet?" "It's been a squeeze, but yes, we've arranged a working lunch on Sunday, so they can go on their last sunrise safari before leaving in the afternoon." Naomi's head snapped up. She'd known, of course, that Luca and Santina would leave soon, but somehow Sunday had seemed further away. She didn't know what to feel, other than emotional. Pretending a need to use the bathroom, Naomi excused herself and went to her bedroom. She needed to get her emotions under control to face Luca. How silly of her to feel like this. Hadn't she decided it was for the best to let him go? It's precisely because he touched a place in her heart she'd long thought dead that she couldn't allow him in any further. His experience with the poachers had made it more than clear. She didn't want to think about how it would feel if she'd given herself to him and anything had happened to him. She wouldn't survive it. Besides, she couldn't get the idea out of her head that she wasn't just a bit of vacation fun for him. And she refused to be his plaything. What happened between them had happened. She couldn't retract it. But she could choose what happens now. It took tremendous effort as she talked to herself in the mirror and stuffed her feelings of love for Luca back inside herself, locked in her heart. When she again took her seat beside him, she felt much calmer, a deep serenity having settled over her. As though he could feel the change in her, he cast her a questioning smile. Naomi, feeling in control of herself, gave him her most professional smile and tucked into her dinner, even though food was the last thing on her mind. Kerry had left before coffee was served to respond to a phone call in her office. Auntie Elsa and Santina retired to the guest lounge for their coffee, leaving Naomi and Luca sitting at the table by themselves, albeit with a few guests still dotted at other tables. Once again the pool echoed with the sounds of enthusiastic after-dinner swimmers. Naomi focused her attention there, much safer, in her opinion. But Luca had moved his chair closer to hers. His breath sent shivers down her spine as he whispered in her ear. "Are you okay, amore? You seem distant." Naomi leaned away from him so she could look at him. "Well, thanks. It's I who should ask if you're okay. You're the one who's been through the wars. Are you tired?" Luca sat back in his chair, apparently satisfied with her answer. "To be honest, I still don't feel 100% myself, but I don't want to be in my room by myself. Would you sit with me? Just until I fall asleep. No, nothing funny, I promise." Naomi smiled at him. How could she refuse such a sweet request? Now that her heart was intact again, she felt safe to be alone with him. But she'd have to watch him. No funny business. "Sure. Do you want me to read to you? It might help to block out the noise from the pool." Luca's eyes twinkled. "The walls in my room are so thick. I'm sure the noise won't bother me, but yes, please, that would be great. I have my e-reader. I never travel without it." When Naomi closed Luca's door behind her, she realized he'd been right. Quiet surrounded her. Other than faint screams of delight coming from the pool now and then, nothing penetrated the thick walls. She watched Luca walk to his bathroom to get changed. She couldn't imagine the days ahead without his broad shoulders in it, but she had to. It was for her own sanity. She arranged his pillows so he'd be more comfortable, dimmed the lights, and made sure he had some water on the bedside table. Then she took a seat on the chair next to his bed. Luca, dressed only in pyjama bottoms, came walking into the bedroom. Naomi's heartbeat increased without her permission, and she struggled to get her breathing under control. Luca was the picture of male perfection. His black hair tousled, his muscles rippling in the light from the bedside table, his long legs displaying his natural athleticism. He slid into the bed, a wicked grin on his handsome face. Picking up and scrolling through his e-reader, he found what he was looking for and handed the device to Naomi before making himself comfortable as he snuggled against the pillows. He must have known how gorgeous he was. Naomi found it difficult to tear her eyes from him, but with a slight shake of her head, looked at the device in her hands. "You are kidding!" Naomi checked again the title of the book he wanted her to read. Yes, it was Deltas of Venus by Anais Nin. When she looked up, she saw Luca was crying with laughter. "Oh, so you think it's funny? Do you read erotica?" He was laughing so hard he couldn't answer, and when he did, he still couldn't stop laughing. "You should see your face, amore." "No, of course not. I just wanted to see your reaction." "You're lucky this is a digital device. Otherwise, you would have more than just sore feet right now." But Naomi couldn't keep a straight face. A smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. She had to fake scratching an itchy nose to keep him from seeing it. She wouldn't fall for his jokes so easily, or at least she wouldn't show him that she did. It might just encourage him. Luca held out a hand to take back the device so he could choose the book he wanted her to read. With his other hand, he was wiping laughter tears from his eyes. When he handed it back, his choice surprised Naomi. It was The Elephant Whisperer, a book she'd wanted to read herself. Now she could share it with Luca. Another keepsake. She just started on the 4th chapter when Luca's even breathing showed he was sleeping. She closed the e-reader. After watching him for a few moments, she sighed, got up, and walked as quietly as she could to the door. There she took a long last look at the exquisite man who'd crept so deeply into her heart. He would live there forever now, no matter what else life had in store for her. It felt as though Naomi hadn't long been asleep when an almighty racket shocked her into jumping out of bed. She grabbed her dressing gown and while running down the corridor struggled to get her arms through the sleeves. In the kitchen, she found members of the anti-poacher unit, Otayan, and several members of staff, all still half asleep. They dragged two strange native men into the room who sat bound on the floor next to the kitchen cabinets. Bright lights blazed inside and out, and everyone seemed to be talking at once, except for the two strange men. Their heads were down on their knees, their demeanour that of having been defeated. "Who are these men, and what are they doing here?" No one had seen Auntie Elsa enter the kitchen, but somehow her voice penetrated the noise. Her hair was standing up, and her dressing gown was buttoned incorrectly, a sign she'd also been awoken from sleep and had rushed to the kitchen. Otayan stepped forward. As he spoke to Auntie Elsa, it transpired that the kitchen staff, who was on very early bread-making duty, had come upon the two men. "These men were snooping outside the kitchen, Mrs. Elsa. The staff called us. We saw the men. They are from the same tribe as the poachers." Auntie Elsa walked closer to the men, keeping her eyes focused on them. But they did their best to avoid eye contact with her, turning their heads this way and that. "Naomi, call the police." At the threat, the men's heads snapped up. They pleaded with Auntie Elsa and Naomi and anyone else they thought might help. Auntie Elsa looked fierce with her glasses balanced on the tip of her nose. "Well, then tell me what you're doing here." The bigger of the two answered. "We heard that Ellie was here, Mrs. Elsa." Auntie Elsa regarded the man, her eyes flicking over each. "That's something I've never understood. When you kill the elephants and take their tusks—" The men interrupted her. "No, Mrs. Elsa, it wasn't us, we swear." Auntie Elsa turned to Otayan. "Is it true? These men weren't among the poachers?" "It's hard to say, Mrs. Elsa. They were not with the poachers we caught, but they may have been there on the day of the kill." Auntie Elsa refocused on the two, who now regarded her with panic in their eyes. Well, I still want to know why you don't just eat the elephants you kill. Why do you sometimes afterwards try to find the Ellie for food?" The men glanced at each other, but realized they weren't getting out of this situation without some answers. The smaller of the two, who appeared older, answered. "It's like this, Mrs. Elsa. The men who killed the elephants have told us there is no time to take the elephant meat. Once they have the tusks, they have to leave very, very fast." The man stopped talking, but Auntie Elsa made it clear she was waiting for him to continue, and after a few minutes he sighed, his body deflating before doing so. "It's the poachers, Mrs. Elsa. They're very fast, so we'll have to come back another time for the Ellie." "Poaching is such a very cruel thing you are doing," the men interrupted again, afraid of going to jail. No, Mrs. Elsa, we're not the poachers. It wasn't us." "Be that as it may, you can't have the Ellie, but I will give you food. You are never to set foot on Desert Lodge ground again, and that includes the desert. Is that clear?" The men, their eyes downcast, mumbled their thanks. "Yes, Mrs. Elsa. Thank you, Mrs. Elsa." By the time the men had eaten, more food packed up for their families, and the Desert Lodge guards had led them off the property, the faint pink of a new day was touching the horizon over the desert. There was no point returning to bed. The dawn chorus crescendoed as Naomi made her way to the swimming pool for a quick swim before taking Santina and Luca out on a sunrise safari. But when, after a quick shower, she went to collect them from the guest lounge, once again only Santina was sitting there. "Buongiorno, Naomi. What a lovely day! Will we see some elephants today, do you think? Naomi nodded. I don't see why not. I'll drive to the waterhole. Oh, that is the one where Kerry proposed to build a water tower. Santina's question was a surprise. It wasn't the first Naomi had heard of it, but that Santina knew about the water tower was amazing. It was one of Kerry's better ideas. Naomi hoped Auntie Elsa would allow it. She smiled. Kerry is full of bright ideas. Some work out and some not so much. Is Luca not joining us this morning? No, I looked in on him before coming here. He's awake, but says he has other plans this morning. At first I thought he meant he was meeting with Kerry about the dune buggies, but he assured me the meeting is still scheduled for tomorrow. I want to be there for it, you see? Naomi nodded. Whatever Luca was up to, it was none of her business. When Santina didn't elaborate about Luca's plans for this morning, Naomi went to the French doors. Shall we go? Together the two women walked around the building to the truck parked outside the kitchen, where the staff had loaded the breakfast things into the safari compartment. Naomi helped Santina up, got in, started the engine, and drove towards the gates that would take them into the desert once more. Santina talked non-stop about the lovely day, how much she loved the feeling of the early morning's cool sun on her face, how she'd miss the expanse of the desert when they went back to Italy, and pointing at every tiny bird she saw. She didn't want Naomi to stop for breakfast, saying she'd prefer it back at the lodge. Only when they'd stopped at the waterhole and she'd finished admiring the animals there, big and small, did she turn to Naomi. Her dark eyes fixed on Naomi's. I'm looking forward very much to my birthday celebrations with Elsa here in July. I know Luca is also looking forward to returning here. Naomi's heart beat faster at the thought of Luca returning. But she was also wondering where Santina was going with her statements. She remained silent, awaiting Santina's words. He's obviously interested in you, Naomi. I've never seen him so smitten, but I hope you won't hurt him. Can you promise me that? Thank you very much for watching, for listening, for liking and sharing my videos, and thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. It means so much to me, and I'm very honoured that you do. Until next time.